What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave. And today I have a very saucy list for you. I actually had this sent to me by one of my viewers, Jacob Ferenci, who managed to, I believe, top 4 in a set championship with it. You guys know I'm not always hyper-focused on the decks that are winning set championships. I love the off-meta decks that are doing well. Like, if I only covered decks that were winning, we'd be talking about Amber Steel every single week, or Emerald Steel. Gotta talk about some other off-meta decks that are doing quite well into meta options. Particularly with this deck, it's running a lot of cards you just don't see every day. I think it's a really interesting off-meta option. It's playing some stuff from set 1 even. We probably haven't seen get played since set 1. It is Blurple, if you were curious. This is a Blurple deck list. It is entirely different. Almost every card in this is different than my previous Blurple list. You guys know I love Mickey Mouse Detective for Blurple. Not playing in this list, totally off base, so it's super interesting, so definitely stick around to see more about this deck. That being said, as always, big shout out to the Patreons for making giveaways on the channel possible. We are super close to those 2,000 subscribers and another big giveaway, so if you haven't subbed, now is an amazing time to do so, and I definitely appreciate the support. It is totally free to subscribe for those of you who don't know. Sorry about last week, I missed some videos. I had a set championship weekend, and then we were prepping for Hurricane Milton. Then Hurricane Milton came. We were out power. If you don't know, I'm in Central Florida, so we were out of power, and so no video on Monday, no video on Friday. It's my first week since starting to do Lorcana videos that I've missed an entire week of videos, so big apologies for that. I'm coming back at you super hot with some interesting new deck lists as always. But that being said, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this Blurple Jafar list. So right at the beginning, we're jumping in with something that's totally different than my typical Blurple list, and that is going to be 4 popsicles. I'm not in an item heavy build with my Blurple list. Typically I play Fishbone Quill and that's like it. This list is playing a lot more items. First off being Popsicle. You may have guessed it is here to take advantage of Hiram Flaversham, but it is a 1-cost inkable item. When you play it, you get to draw cards. That's fantastic and replace itself right away. Most people aren't going to have a way to banish a 1-cost item, and even if they do, they're not going to want to use it because they're going to want to save it for some of your other items. It does also have banish this item, remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. Typically not what you're going to be using it for, but that ability is there when you need it. Then the only other 1-drop in the deck we are on 4 Magic Broom, a Luminary Keeper, a 1-cost 1/2 character, inkable character. Whenever you play another character, you may banish this character to draw a card, and it is questing for 1. So a great way to keep up with the card draw in the match. Also a good way to take advantage of Jafar in the late game if you're getting brooms later. This is a card that I haven't seen too heavily used in Sapphire. There were a couple deck lists that ran it. I think the deck list that was kind of off meta with the Evil Queen played Scuttle because it was super item heavy. This deck is fairly item heavy, so Scuttle has a good chance to get you value, but he's a 2-cost inkable character, 1/3 stat line, so he's staying out of that steal damage for the most part. A lot of times they're going to be dealing 2 in the early game, and when you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So he's essentially an Ariel for items, coming down for 1 less. He can't then play those items for free like Ariel can with Singing, but he is going to let you dig up an item and dig 4 cards deeper into your deck. Speaking of cards we haven't seen too heavily played that are going to let you dig deeper into your deck, we do have 4 Amethyst Chromacon, a 2-cost inkable item. You're going to be able to exert it. Each player is going to draw cards, so right away on turn 2 you can start using it to draw cards. Basically what this is going to do for most people early in the game who don't have a deck that's focused on ink ramp is going to give them the ability to ink more regularly. So keep that in mind. If it's somebody who's struggling with ink, you may want to just ink your Amethyst Chromacon, not give them the extra card draw if they're in a position where they're struggling with ink. If they're inking every turn, they're coming at you hot, they're probably going to play Whole New Worlds anyway, as in with the Steel Song matchup. Go ahead and Amethyst Chromacon to your heart's content. Also a great way to take advantage of Jafar in the late game to draw some extra cards, get some extra lore. Another card very specific to Jafar, and one we haven't seen in the meta too much, I will note with this deck list, the deck list Jacob sent me was a 63 card deck list. I did go ahead and cut it down to 60 cards. One of those cuts was a 4th lamp. We'll leave a link to my version of the deck in the description below, but just keep in mind Jacob's deck was running an additional lamp. It was also running an additional Merlin Crab, and there was something else that I will think of when we get to it. But a lamp, 2-cost uninkable item, Banish this item. If you have a character named Jafar in play, you're going to draw 2 cards, so great way to take advantage of Jafar, get some extra card draw. If you have a character named Genie in play, return chosen character with cost 4 or less to their player's hand. We do have a character named Genie in this deck, so not typically what you're looking to do with the lamp, but there may be potential to take advantage of it. Next up, we are on 4 Mim Fox. You may have seen my video where I talk about the 17 best cards in Lorcana right now. Out of the Merlin Mim package, Mim Fox was my choice. Some people made the argument that I should have chosen Merlin Rabbit or Merlin Goat. People had a lot of different opinions about what should have been in there, or even said that I should have had Rabbit and Fox. My argument is without the bounce portion of that package, Rabbit really doesn't do as much. And even if you're not taking advantage of that bounce portion, he gets you 2 cards. I mean, that's neat for 4, but he is a 2/3 questing for 1. I think Mim is just so crazy in the meta. She's dealing with everything in the early game. She's banishing pretty much every character you can deal with. She is the hard counter to Daisy in the meta right now. So if anybody's on those Daisy ducks, Mim Fox is your answer. She is a 3-cost inkable character, 4/3 stat line, coming down and bouncing a character back to your hand, or you're going to have to banish her. So you do need a character pre-established to get her on the board, but she's going to rush. She's going to rush in for 4, which is crazy early in the game. She's, like I said, she's a hard counter to pretty much any character that's giving you a hard time. She's also going to bounce things, so you could take advantage of triggers more than once, which is pretty crazy. Like the trigger of Merlin Crab. I'm sure if you've been watching the channel for a while, you've seen me talk about Crab and Fox many times, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse too much, but he is a 3-cost inkable character, 3/3 stat line, which is decent for a 3-cost character, questing for 1, which isn't the most exciting. When he plays character, when he leaves play, chosen character is going to gain Challenger 3. So keep in mind that leaves play trigger, because you may be able to challenge, get a trade with him, and then banish him out, give something else +3 to get another favorable trade. Also with Fox, when she enters play and bounces a crab to your hand, you can use that trigger on Fox, get her up to 7, take out Queen's Castle. So the Crab Fox combo is great. Crab is also going to be really good with those scuttles to go ahead and get your scuttle up to 4 attack, deal with Daisy Ducks, or really anything else that may potentially give you a hard time. Then next up, a card you don't typically see played in Sapphire a whole ton, because Sapphire does have such strong card draw, but that is Friends on the Other Side. A 3-cost inkable action song, gonna let you draw 2 cards, singable with several characters in the deck, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, great way to gain some extra lore with Jafar. Then our only ink ramp card in this deck, which seems crazy because typically with Blurple you are a little heavier on the ink ramp, is going to be Fishbone Quill. Ideally, if you're not getting it in your starting hand, you want to mulligan pretty aggressively for it. This deck is playing very few uninkables, less than 10. It's probably the only deck I've ever really messed with playing less than 10 uninkables. But that being said, it does allow you the freedom to mulligan fairly aggressively for a Fishbone Quill. And if you don't get that Fishbone Quill and you got a scuttle or 2, that can work as well, because getting that scuttle down on turn 2 is going to be perfectly on curve with Fishbone Quill to get the Fishbone off the top of your deck and get it down on 3. We do have other options to hit for 3-cost items with Scuttle as well, but not as ideal as far as what you're going to want to be getting down on. We do have White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. This is one of those items that came out in set 1, saw a little bit of play, hasn't really seen play since set 1, even set 2, 3, 4. Wasn't really getting played, but it is going to be a 3-cost inkable item. Pay 1 and exert it. Chosen character gains Rush this turn. So for 1 ink, you can give any character in the deck Rush. It is worth noting it's not typically something that you would be taking advantage of in any other deck, but with something that is the ability to give it Rush, Merlin Crab doesn't say another character, so Merlin Crab actually can come down and target himself with his +3. So you could potentially play this on 3, play Crab on 4, and then you have the 3 to play the Crab, 1 to activate this, and you can have a 6/3 Rush character on turn 4, which is kind of crazy. Also with the White Rabbit's Pocket Watch, this is going to be hugely important to what we're doing in this deck with Jafar and Genie. You may have noticed at this point that we don't have any shift targets for Jafar just yet. Next up, our only 4-cost character, which isn't typically something you want to do. You want to have a good curve in a lot of decks with more than 1 4-cost character, more than 4 drops in your deck. However, with playing Fishbone Quill, it kind of lets you circumvent your turn 4. So if you're going Fishbone Quill on 3, go ahead and exert it to ink something. You're actually going to be going into turn 4 with 5 ink, so you can jump right to those 5 drops. So not too heavy on the 4 drops in this deck, but we do have 4 Hiram Flaversham Toymaker, an absolute necessity for what this deck is doing. A 4-cost inkable character, 1/6 stat line, questing for 1, but that's not what's That's not what's important. What's important is when he comes into play and when he quests, you're going to be able to go ahead and banish one of your items and draw 2 cards, get those Jafar triggers, and keep your hand full. Then another 4 of, we are on 4 Elsa the Fifth Spirit, a 5-cost inkable character, 2/5 stat line, a card I've been messing around with quite a bit in Ruby Amethyst to the point that I'm actually playing Big Elsa in that deck now, and she is going to have Rush and Evasive, which makes her incredibly difficult to deal with. She's a great answer for Diablos, and when you play this character, exert chosen opposing character. The thing that's neat is a lot of times if you are dealing with those Diablos, they like to have those Diablos exerted to get the draw off of you. So when Elsa comes down, you can actually use that exert ability to exert something else while still getting that favorable trade into Diablo with the Elsa. But definitely think 4 of these is a great place to be with this deck because you really need the control cards. With Ruby, I am playing 3 of them. This was the last card that I cut from 4 to 3, and that is going to be Let It Go. He made a great argument for Let It Go and it being good in this deck, being able to play Elsa Fifth Spirit and then sing it with Elsa because she is probably going to live into the following turn. However, I don't know that's what I want to be doing on my turn 6 if I can avoid it. I'm going to be giving my opponent ink. I'm already giving them additional card draw, so I did go ahead and cut to 3 Let It Go. He did make the argument that you're probably going to be inking a couple of them early in the game. That kind of pushed my hand on the choice to cut to 3 of these. If you're inking them that often, I think being at 3 is probably going to be a little more comfortable. This is a 5-cost inkable action song. Put chosen character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted, so it's going to deal with those big threats, Tamatoas, big Cindy's, Maui's, all that kind of stuff. Speaking of dealing with those big threats in another way, we do have 2 Kuzco, Selfish Emperor. He is a 6-cost inkable 3/5 stat line, questing for 2, so one of the few characters questing for more than 1 in this deck. And when you play this character, you may put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell face down and exerted, so you are going to be doing some ink ramp for your opponent with this card, but it's going to let you deal with items and locations that may be giving you trouble. And you can pay 4 and your other characters gain resist +1 until the start of your next turn. It is worth noting you don't have to exert him with that buy and fight only pay 4 ability, so you can pay 4 as many times as you'd like. Then next up, jumping into the 7 slot, we do have 4 Jafar, Striking Illusionist, a 7-cost inkable character, 4/5 stat line, fantastic stat line because it stays out of the range of a lot of stuff. It does die to Zeus, which is kind of a bummer, but you could potentially get those Kuzcos down and give it resist if it is relevant. And they're going to be having to use that Zeus on your Kuzco instead, but he is a shift 5. As you may have noticed, we have 0 shift targets for him in this deck. What we're looking to take advantage of is White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. He is evasive, so really hard for your opponents to deal with in that regard. And during your turn while this character is exerted, whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 lore. So ideally what you want to do is look to get him down when you have 8 ink and you have White Rabbit's Pocket Watch in play. So you're going to play him, you're going to activate the Pocket Watch to give him Rush, you're going to go ahead and bang onto something, take a favorable trade, maybe take some damage onto him, put him in a position where he's a little bit at risk. But then if you have something like Hiram Flaversham out to banish an item, draw you some cards, Jafar's Lamp to draw you some cards, Friends on the Other Side to draw you some cards, there's lots of ways to draw cards with this deck and take advantage of that in real time to grab some extra lore. And if they can't banish it during that next turn, they don't have the direct damage or removal, you're going to be able to do it even better on the following turn because you're going to have more ink open. Next up in the 7-cost slot and the second to last card in the deck, we are on 2 Genie Main Attraction, a card I have not seen really get played at all. It seemed borderline unplayable despite its good stat line and interesting ability, but when you combine it with White Rabbit's Pocket Watch and a little bit of ink ramp, it starts getting pretty good because you can go turn 3, get to 4 ink, turn 5, you get to 6 ink, turn 6 you get to 8 ink. So on turn 6 you're already in a position where you can play Genie and you can go ahead and activate that White Rabbit's Pocket Watch, and your opponent probably has quite a few characters on the board potentially exerted, so you're gonna, same thing as with Jafar, you want to get White Rabbit's Pocket Watch down first. You're going to go ahead and give this guy Rush, attack something with that sweet 5/5 stat line, banish it potentially, and while this character is exerted, opposing characters can't ready at the start of their next turn is his ability, so he is going to keep them from unlocking. But 7 cost uninkable 5/5 questing for 2 with a pretty sweet ability, definitely interesting with White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. He's one of those cards that I thought, like, since he didn't have a shift line, was just never going to see play. If you could shift him down and take advantage of that in real time, he would be cracked, but since you can't, giving him Rush is the only other answer. And then last up in the 8 cost slot, final card in the deck, we are on 3 Elsa Spirit of Winter, an 8 cost uninkable character, 4/6 stat line, questing for 3, shifting for 6, so super nice on curve with that Elsa the 5th Spirit on 5, Elsa Spirit of Winter on 6. And when you play her, she is going to exert up to 2 characters, and they're going to remain exerted during your opponent's next turn. So she is a great way to additionally kind of lock down that board before you put the Genie out, or just continue to lock it down over and over again. You Elsa, and then you bounce it back with Fox, and then you Elsa again. If you're shifting it, you could potentially separate them, so you could go turn 5 Elsa 5th Spirit, turn 6 Elsa Spirit of Winter, lock something down. Turn 7, you go ahead and crab this guy back to your hand, or whatever turn it is based on your extra inking. Grab this guy back to your hand, and then you get the Elsa 5th Spirit back as well. And then you have 2 more Elsas to play and continue to lock down the board. So it is a weird lockdown kind of ramp Blurple build. That is the extent of it. I think it's really a super interesting deck. Seeing it perform well is quite interesting. He told me he had done a ton of play testing and tweaking with his friend group before he ever took it to set championships, so he felt really good about the position the deck was going to be in. I think the deck is super interesting. I'm going to be messing around with it quite a bit. I'm going to be playing it at League most likely, so if you come to my local league, now you know what I'm going to be playing. Get your cards ready to deal with the weird shenanigans I'm bringing as always. And thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. Do you think this deck is cool? Do you hate it? Do you think some of the cards that were chosen are weird, or there's better cards to play? Definitely drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure Jacob would love to read them, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the deck as well. Again, if you haven't taken the time to subscribe, now's a great time to do so. We are on the cusp of a giveaway, and thank you guys as always for your support. Remember to slap that like button if you have the time, and when you see those toys, video games, and decks featuring Elsa Spirit of Winter off in the distance, remember, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.